I think of all the things that goes into grant writing, a logic model seems to have the biggest learning curve, and I feel once you get it, you get it. But before then, you're like, why am I breaking things up in this chart with all these columns? Like, I know what I'm doing. I know how I'm impacting the community. So let's dive in a little bit in this breakout space and think about, if you are using a logic model, how are you using that to guide or communicate your work with funders? If you're not, how might it assist you? Defining those inputs, outputs, outcomes, like differentiating between all of that and making sure that they're clear and understandable for funders and internally as well. It can help influence your work. Using a logic model to stay organized, making sure that the program is aligned to the overall mission of the program and your agency. And what are some of the assumptions, external factors that you can talk to in your logic model might be important for you to incorporate in your work? And hopefully this leads you to think about a change that you can make in your logic models, assuming you have one, or just help give you the nudge you need to create one. So logic models, what about them? How do you feel about them? I personally feel it's a great way to kind of organize some of your ideas for a grant. And like once you get over the hump, it becomes a little bit like second nature. But how about you? Have you worked with logic models a lot in your work? What do you think about them?
I love them, and I'm a nerd in that way. Reason being is I think the logic model allows you an opportunity to see how much money you're actually going to need without knowing how much money you're actually going to need. Because if you find yourself at that one of those columns, that input where it's a heavy column and you're just adding a couple different things in there and it's kind of flowing off the page, that's an indication for you to be mindful of budget at that point. And then also what I love most about logic models is that that output versus outcome aspect. That part of it allows you, again, to differentiate, like you've been learning thus far throughout this module, impact versus what happens after service delivery or engagement with the community. And it is a difference when you think about funders and where they want to place their dollars, because that, again, speaks to the larger conversation of sustainability.
Absolutely.
Logic models also are a quick and dirty way to be able to see just how sustainable your program is, both financially but also programmatically as well.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I would just add a couple of things where, when we think about inputs, it's not just about those resources. So, of course, you're going to talk about like your staffing, the dollars coming into your agency, even some of the infrastructure like vehicles, computers, things that you need to physically get that job done. Some logic models will have this broken out in its own section. Otherwise, you can put this in the inputs. But think about some of the external factors that influence your work. So things like the degree of food insecurity in your community, the number of low and moderate income households and individuals that your community might have, and just showing that there is a little bit of that need for what your program is getting to. And then differentiating between outputs and outcomes, I think, is a great way to kind of, again, not get too focused on your work and what you're producing, but how is it impacting the community at large. So typically I like to think about how outputs are those numeric pieces that, whether it's meals, pounds of food, number of clients or guests that you're serving, and then outcomes is what, if everything is successful, if society keeps progressing in a positive way, what do efforts like this go towards? So using a soup kitchen or a food pantry as an example, an outcome would be those meals, would be those pounds of food. Then an outcome would be, helping support a more just and sustainable food secure community, helping eradicate hunger in these communities. Those are the outcomes that you're working toward. Realistically, we know we're never going to eradicate hunger, especially in our just the way the current structure is. But those are the goals that you're working toward, and funders like to see like some of these overarching goals that you're trying to address through your programs.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. I think also this notion of assumptions or external factors that you may need to clarify. The logic model also allows you the opportunity to look for some of those gaps that you may not have fully thought through. Because if you are, again, using that peer review model that we talk so much about throughout this course, meaning having another set of eyes, whether that be someone within your nonprofit or whether that be AI, it's really important for you to have another set of eyes to take a look at your logic model to make sure that things make sense. Because it's one thing for when you're actually like in the work, you know what the community needs, you engage with the community members that make up that population or what have you. And it's another thing if you're trying to explain this to a funder that may not know much about what it looks like from a micro level. But the logic model allows you to do so. So there may be some assumptions in there that need to be further clarified, but that's why it's important, again, to get that other perspective on it as well. But the breakdown of the model allows you to be able to, those assumptions may jump out.
100%. So reflect on in this module, this presentation. We're just getting into logic models, and they can be an incredibly useful tool and just a great way to kind of organize your thoughts and think about the overall effectiveness of your program and your organization. Looking forward to your comments in the forum, seeing how those of you who are already using logic models leverage them, and folks who are just dipping their toes in the water, any questions that you might have that we can help address to get you started.